Hi everyone, and welcome back to Girls Got Game. We are back this week for episode 3. Thank you so much for picking our podcast to listen to. We have had some great discussions so far on the show, and today will be no exception. This week, I, Ella, had the pleasure of talking with Sarah Jenkins, who is a digital studio producer for CBC Sports. Sarah has quite the experience working in the sport industry, as she graduated from Ryerson's sport media program only in 2008 and has already worked with CBC, Sportsnet, Yahoo, and many more. I think her experience in sport media is super interesting, as her position's kind of new in the industry during COVID. So let's take a listen to Sarah's take on the future of sport media and how her job has changed and adapted to the pandemic. All right, so for this week's interview, this is Ella here, by the way. I'm so excited to be here with Sarah Jenkins. She's a digital studio producer for CBC Sports. So thank you so much, Sarah, for being here. This is going to be really interesting.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So let's start off with your sort of history. So you only graduated in 2018, which wasn't even that long ago, but I feel like you have so much good experience in the industry already. So can you give us a little background on sort of how you got to be where you are now? That could be like university, volunteer jobs, anything.
Yeah, it feels a lot longer, honestly, than just 3 years, but I've had many lives in there. So I graduated as part of the first graduating class of sport media at Ryerson in 2018. I actually, before even graduating, had accepted a job with Yahoo Sports as a video producer. So I think I started the week after exams finished or something, or I had like a week in between. So I literally had to take a day off, use a vacation day to go to graduation. So I didn't take any breaks, didn't do any of the travel thing. I went right into working full time. Worked there for almost 2 years, and then a rite of passage in the media industry is getting laid off, and I experienced that a little earlier than I wanted to, but I got laid off from Yahoo December of 2019, and then I found myself freelancing. So I freelanced with Sportsnet and CBC Sports to make full-time work, and a couple of freelance companies in the States and here and there, but then I got hired on full-time at CBC to be the digital studio producer in July. So I've been there ever since.
Yeah, so you've been everywhere over Toronto, it seems like.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. After I got laid off, because you do the whole tweet you got laid off thing, because I mean you kind of have to, because it's a way to make people know that you're available, which is such a weird concept. But I had a meeting with every major network in this city, and it was just this really weird they know that you don't have a job, so they know that you're desperate, but also you kind of have this weird power because there's all these people that want to hire. It's the most weird experience I've ever been through, but yeah, it was interesting.
And it worked out. So with that job that you have currently as digital studio producer, what goes into your daily job? I don't know if you want to compare that to, I guess, before everything was super, super online, but what does a digital studio producer really do?
So I've only done the digital studio producer job while it's in the pandemic. So the digital studio at CBC Sports did not exist pre-pandemic. I was supposed to start this job in April, and then obviously the pandemic happened, everything got pushed, and it happened in July. So the digital studio is just a place for our digital team to be able to create content. We do sometimes produce television content out of it, but at the end of the day, it's just a studio to create digital video content and digital first content. So day-to-day is different because I'm only one person. We've only just really started to build out our team with editors and APs and PAs, and my day changes every single day because I have to be thinking long-term and short-term at the same time, which is a little bit bizarre. So I have to be planning out our Olympic plans, our shows for next September, our Beijing 2022 plans, while simultaneously watching the news to figure out okay, we should react to that. Oh, okay, Max Perot just won this humanitarian award. Can we get him in an interview on Monday? And then on top of that, I also produce solely the show North Court. So it's a little bit of everything. My days change every single day. So one day I might be just hardcore dedicated to working on North Courts, and I've passed off a bunch of work, or some days I'm just in meetings, which is a lot of what being a managerial position is, and thinking of concepts and how we can sell stuff in the studio for the Olympics and whatever. So I wish I could say it's one thing, but it honestly changes every single day.
Yeah, that's good. Keeps it fresh, though.
Exactly.
So what is something, this is more of a just interesting question to me, what's something that you're most proud of in your whole career? It doesn't have to be in your current job, but something that you've done that you felt really good about once it was complete?
Honestly, I really don't think anything... I mean, anything so far hasn't really topped my practicum, and that was only because it was so close to my heart. My practicum was inspired by someone that was super close to me that lost her life to cancer, and then we raised $25,000 for their foundation. That was by far the most, there's really isn't anything that's topped that for me. We did the 3-part doc series that we sold to Sportsnet Sportsnet matched our donation to sick kids, and we were able to put on a fundraising gala and all of this stuff. So it's different though, because like when you're in practicum, like all you have is time to do that. Like it's not like you're working at the same time. So like I could focus all my energy on it. So that was really big for me. I mean, getting to like cover the Toronto Maple Leafs like full time, I think when I was in the moment, I didn't realize how big of a deal it was. But now that I've kind of been removed from it, I'm like, right, I was one of like...
That was cool.
I was one of like 12 to 15 people that are like at every single game. And like when we talk about like in sport media, like the Leafs media and all this, and everyone like talks about how bad the Leafs media are, I'm like, oh shoot, I am Leafs media now that I realize it. So I think that's something that now in hindsight, I realized was like really unique, especially like being one of the only... I mean, like, the other women that were there were a lot of, like, journalists or on-air talent. I was the only, like, female camera operator, producer. So I think that was pretty cool, and I just didn't realize it until, honestly, after. It took me a little while. I was a little bitter for a while, so it's taken me a little bit to get over that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about how COVID has sort of impacted your job. Obviously, producing is very much a team effort. So would you say your job has changed a lot in the way that you react with your team? And what is sort of like the biggest challenge you've had to deal with while responding to that change?
So the biggest challenge for me was that I was the only person going into the studio since July. So everybody else in the digital team works from home, and me and my editor, and then like obviously whoever our talent was, but they only came in for like an hour and then they'd leave. Were the ones on the ground. And it's really difficult, like, because I have people that are going, oh, you're so lucky you get to go in the office, but they don't realize that going in the office as the only person going in the office is not fun. Like, it's not, yes, you get like that break and I get out of my apartment, but it's different because like I see things different. Like I see things differently on the ground than when you're at home, right? Like you don't understand how things function, especially with the studio, because the studio opened in July, like in the pandemic. So there's people that are helping me produce content around the studio that have never stepped foot in the studio before. Like my boss who like created the studio, was like part of his like being here. He has only been in like twice. So it's like this really weird like thing that we created that kind of popped up, and we're coming up on a year of it being there that so many of the people haven't even stepped foot in, and that's really difficult. So it's hard for me to explain like the processes, or like, oh no, you don't get it, we have 2 rooms and it's separate, because they can't visually see it. So that's been really difficult. And obviously just like file sizes and pain in the butt stuff like that is just difficult when working from home, which is just like the tedious things that you don't even think about.
But they definitely still affected a lot.
For sure. Workflow especially. Like when a file that like if you're on like in the office takes like 20 minutes to download, well it takes 3.5 hours when someone's at home because like of VPN and everything. So just like things like that and budgeting that time into it makes it more difficult.
Definitely makes everything a little bit longer to finish. But so something else that I thought was kind of interesting is that you've taken up TikTok. So I kind of wanted to touch on that because I feel like it's different. We've interviewed a couple people now, and they kind of are more of the like traditional social media side of it. So why did you start posting on TikTok, and do you think it's going to have a big part in the future of sport media? Well, I started posting on TikTok because of unemployment.
No, so the first reason I started posting, I actually posted my first like vlog like a year ago, yesterday or something. But the reason I started was because I was trying to learn the app. Because after I got laid off and all this stuff, I was like, I need to like know how this app functions. Because if I'm a digital content producer, like I need to know how to use all these different platforms. Like I know Instagram, I know Twitter, but it felt like this whole other world. And I figured, okay, the only way I'm going to learn is if I actually make content on it. So I started making videos, assuming nobody would watch them. I did like a day in my life at Sportsnet, a day in my life, like that kind of stuff. And then people started actually watching it. And then a few weeks later, we went into a global pandemic and sports shut down. And as a freelancer, I lost all my work because freelancers were the first to go. So within 3 months, it almost felt like I had been laid off twice because like I had finally gotten to a freelance like gig and like freelance world, and then sports shut down. And like I still have not stepped foot back in Sportsnet since I left a year ago on March 13th. So that was like hard for me because I was like back in the swing of things with work. And so then I started making 3 to 4 TikToks a day as a way to like, because it was something I could see growth on. Like I was growing a few hundred followers a day, and I was like, okay, so like I can see tangible growth on this platform. Let's see what happens if I actually like try. And so then I started making 3 to 4 videos a day, and then I hit 10,000 within the first month that I was doing it. And then from there, it just like kept growing. And now it's become literally like a side hustle for me where I like now, it's weird, I'm now like more so known with people for like being, oh, that girl from TikTok that is from Toronto, as opposed to my actual job in media, which is, it feels like I live a double life. Like it's this weird, it's this weird thing that I'm trying to, like, today I had to update my website, and like normally it's just all work stuff, and I'm like, oh shoot, I should probably put TikTok on there now because it's like an avenue for me to make money. So yeah, it's been a really weird thing, but I actually had pitched doing exactly what I'm doing to my former boss, and pitched like, oh, we should vlog from the rink, we should do all this stuff on TikTok, and like was shut down. So now it's like just interesting in hindsight looking at all that. I do think it's going to be, people try to compare it to Vine, and if it's going to die, it's not. Like, I think there's more and more teams and media companies that are getting the idea of it, but I think the best way to do it is if they integrate themselves with creators, and once they figure that out, then I think it'll be a game changer.
Yeah. And you also touched on that growth aspect. I'm just curious because obviously I don't do TikTok for actually getting followers, but how do you find the comparison between, does TikTok like grow faster than Instagram? Do you find you can get the word out easier on either platform?
I wouldn't say it grows. Okay, so at the beginning, the whole thing was like, oh, you can just gain more followers on TikTok quickly, whatever. It's changed now because there's so many users on it, so it's changed, obviously. Like, the big thing on TikTok that it used to be was, like, people would follow, like, really, like, freely. Like, people would just, like, follow people, like, whenever. Like, I know a girl that went viral overnight and gained 700,000 followers. Like, that doesn't happen on any other platform. But the issue is all of her other videos don't get any views. Like, nobody actually watches her content. They just watched it for that one video. So that's the interesting part about TikTok. My following was actually really different because I had a slow, steady growth, whereas most people, like, blow up overnight. I had a couple of videos pop off and I woke up with, like, an extra 2,000 followers or something, but nothing like major, like a 50,000, 100,000.
Yeah.
Mine actually went more the traditional route of like a YouTube, of a comparable to something like that. Same with my engagement. And then with Instagram, it's like, I've always seen Instagram as a secondary platform, to be completely honest. Like, the people I follow on Instagram, it's like, it's secondary because it's like, I either know you in real life or I follow you on YouTube, or I'm subscribed to you on YouTube. I follow you on XYZ. That's why I follow you on Instagram, because now I already care about your life. And that's been the same for me for Instagram. Like, I've gained like 10,000 followers on Instagram because of TikTok, and it's because like people are invested in my life from TikTok, so then like they go to the secondary platform, which is Instagram. So it's a very like weird like cycle that it's created, but I don't know if I could say it's like easier or harder. I mean, the search aspect of it is obviously easier. The fact that anyone can go viral, it doesn't matter how many followers you have, that's obviously like the huge part. But virality, that's not even a word, but going viral doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna like gain a following, I guess, on TikTok.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, so to end this interview on a bright note, is there anything that you found while working remotely that you think has been beneficial to you that you might take into the future? Like, for example, as much as I would love to be doing our TV lab classes in person, I still think that learning how to produce and direct and switch online is still just as important, that I will definitely like probably use in the future. So is there anything that you found during lockdown that will definitely be used once we even open up again?
I mean, like, Zoom is incredible. Like, the idea that people were so I used to produce a podcast, Jack and Soap, with Sophia Yurcevich and Jackie Redmond, and we did that through, like, it wasn't Zoom, it was Skype, but we did that through video conferencing, and we kept getting told, no one's going to buy this because the video quality is bad. No one's going to watch this because the video quality is bad because it's a webcam. And that was, like, however many, 3 years ago now that we were doing that, and we were kind of, without even realizing it, ahead of the curve, because now it's created a standard that like people are fine with watching like a Zoom call. People are fine with the quality as long as the content is good. So it makes it so much easier to have access. Also, phoners are going to be like done. Like, there's never going to be like, oh, can I just like hop on the phone with you, because you're always going to be able to have that video aspect. We know that everyone has access to Zoom now, so I think that's going to be the thing that's going to stick. And with the Olympics and everything coming up, we'll be able to talk to anybody in Canada. So I think that's going to be something great that sticks for a long time. Yeah, definitely. Well, it's certainly going to be interesting. I think it's awesome, especially like you said, for Canada and the Olympics. It's going to be so much easier to get interviews with whoever's available, right? Exactly. So that'll be cool to see going into the future. But yeah, I think that's all for today. So thank you so much for coming on Girls Got Game. That was some interesting topics, and it's kind of cool to see sort of a different, like you were saying, a new position in producing and how that's kind of evolved with COVID. So that was really interesting. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Well, thank you so much to Sarah Jenkins for coming on the podcast. It was super cool to hear her opinion on where she thinks the sport media industry is going. She kind of also talked about how to use TikTok to grow her own personal brand, and a lot about how her job has changed in lockdown. And I feel like Sarah's just done so much already in her short career, which is awesome to see. And I definitely loved hearing about her position as
digital studio producer, and how it's changed, and how she was kind of describing that it was kind of a new position already, which is, I think, a plus that's coming out of the pandemic and lockdown and everything, is that all these new positions are being opened up. And I think as a student, it was a little scary at the beginning of the pandemic, because I was like, man, so many people are getting laid off. We only graduate in a year. But to see Sarah's side of it and how she got a totally new role, basically, was just very, like, promising to see and optimistic. And I think it's definitely there's gonna be a lot of new jobs too coming. And I think a lot of that's because of social media is becoming such a big part of, like, sports and just, like, media in general, I guess, because you can't connect like actually physically. So there's a lot of new stuff going on social media, which is good to see.
Yeah, I almost feel like, honestly, the pandemic might benefit us. Like, as much as it sucks and we haven't been on campus in literally a year, once we graduate, there's going to be, like, a lot of positions where people got laid off, right? And I mean, hoping that things are back to somewhat normal by then, but either way, there's going to be a lot of new positions, and also positions that were cleared during the pandemic that they're going to need people back in. So I think in a lot of ways we're going to be able to benefit from this, and hopefully we can all, or most of us at least, can get into a entry-level job right out of school.
Yeah, it was like, I agree with that, and I feel like listening to Sarah, I mean, it was really inspiring, because I feel like there's a lot of pressure in a way to, like, kind of get a job right out of university and all this stuff. And she only graduated in 2008, and she had all these different jobs. And it kind of gives me hope that, that it is possible. And it's, you know, it is possible if you put in the work. And also, like Kennedy was saying, like, when the pandemic started, I was like, oh my God, like, no one's going to get a job. We're graduating in a year. What are we going to do? But hearing Sarah's story and how she got that role of digital studio producer it's really inspiring. So it was, like, kind of an uplifting interview to listen to.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was really comforting to hear how, like, she's been through so many changes already, but she's honestly, like, just, like, dealt with it as it's come. And I think I'm the kind of person who really stresses about, if I don't get this paper done, I don't get a good mark, and then I won't get a good job, and then I won't graduate, like, blah, 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 you know? And I feel like just hearing that interview and knowing that she's just like us, like, she's went through the sport media program. She went through the first graduating class as well, I feel like is a big deal, because the program's really developed since then. But it was really comforting to hear that things are going to change, things are going to happen. It's out of your control, but at the end of the day, like, as long as you're still working hard and doing what you're passionate about, then you're going to get there, and you're going to basically accomplish what you want to. And just, it's amazing to see how busy she is, but also to see how, like, she was such a good interviewee. First of all, that was an amazing interview, Ella. And just, like, if you've ever watched her TikToks, go check them out. They're so therapeutic for me. They're so just like, oh, wow, like, how is she this busy, but also has the time to, like, do all these things that she's showing us in TikTok? And I know that on TikTok and, like, other social medias, you can only show the world a certain part of you, so you don't see, like, the parts where maybe she was really stressed out that morning or something like that. But yeah, I'm so excited to be that busy.
I agree. I'm ready to have 8 million things on my plate again. And I think going off that first point you made, Natasha, was that I think as a student, I don't know if you guys agree with this, but I feel like there's a lot of pressure to know, like, we're only in third year, and I feel like I already have to know exactly what I want to do and the path I want to take to get there. And I think Sarah's story was, like, an experience where she just did so many small things all over the place, which I think definitely ultimately helped her decide on what she really wanted to do. But it was just, like we were saying, like, comforting to hear that she had tried a bunch of different things. Obviously, I think I would say they were all kind of in, like, the same area of, like, producing, but she tried a bunch of different roles until she found something she really liked, which is, I don't know, it's nice to see that you don't have to have your path, like, completely set out from the second you graduate, right?
Because, that's not realistic. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely don't.
No, so. I have no idea.
I feel like it's... I just feel like it's also so nice because she doesn't just do one thing, because I feel like in a lot of industries, and including when people graduate university, it's expected, okay, you already know your path, you're doing this one thing for the rest of your life. But for her, like, she did so many things, and she's doing so many things now, and it's like, you know what, and it's already been many years since she graduated, but she's still doing so many different things, and it's like, you know what, you don't have to do the one thing for the rest of your life. You can switch, and you can explore different options even like way after you graduate. So I found that really inspiring as well.
I find it really funny how she said that she already had a job like coming out of school, and she had to take a sick day for grad. Like, that really goes to show how like quick you can get a job out of this program.
Another comment that stood out to me was when she said that getting laid off is like a rite of passage in the sports, like in the sport media industry. And it makes sense because you think about like a lot. I know, but a lot of the profs we have work oh my god, what's the term?
Freelance?
Yeah, thank you. Like, work freelance, and it is such a cool, I feel like, opportunity, but it's such like an also scary way of, I feel like, working, because you might not have a job.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I think you have to look...
It was eye-opening.
Yeah, but I think you have to look at, like, both sides of it, where, yes, it is kind of scary because you don't have, like, a permanent job and it just goes by, I guess, like, when they need you kind of thing, when you get hired. But at the same time, I feel like that's such a cool... I mean, I'm saying this not as a freelancer, so who knows? But I feel like it's such a cool experience to be able to work on, like, a variety of different things. Like, you can get hired as a producer for, like, soccer versus hockey versus something like WWE, right? Like, there's so many different aspects to it.
No, yeah, I feel like that's
definitely
a bonus.
Yeah, for sure. But that must have been hard, especially right at I guess it was, like, right before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
Which is so stressful.
Because she said that's what got her into TikTok.
Yeah.
She was like, didn't know what she was going to do.
Yeah, that was also an interesting... Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Sorry. No, I'm just saying, like, it's kind of scary because it's like with freelancing, you finish one job and then you're like, well, I don't know if I'm going to get another one.
Yeah.
What if I don't? What if I can't pay my rent? What if I don't have the money? So, like, I really respect her for, like, kind of doing that and taking that, like, risk, because I feel like there is a big risk, especially if you know, you're fresh out of university and obviously money's tight, and you know, it's nice to have a stable job, but it's like, I really respect her for kind of choosing the harder, I would say it's harder, the freelance route, and more risky, maybe not harder, but more risky route with freelancing. So yeah, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, more risky for sure, because I feel like you definitely don't have that security there. Like, at the end of the day, you're like, you come home and you know that you're going to work tomorrow, versus like freelancing. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've never freelanced before, so I don't know if I have the right to say any of this, but freelancing definitely does scare me, but it does seem kind of inevitable, because every prof or grad that I've talked to has freelanced at some point.
It's just how the industry is, yeah.
Exactly, and I think it's really important that we've been going through this program, and I don't know about you, but for the 3 years that we've been in this program, I've constantly been pushed outside my comfort zone, which is such a good thing, because when you go into the real world and one day we're forced to freelance, or we choose to freelance, or whatever, it's going to be outside of my comfort zone, but I'm going to have to do it because that's the way the industry is. And so, like, listening to her and how she freelanced when she got laid off, I think it gives me a lot of confidence knowing that, like, okay, you don't have to be scared. Like, everyone does this. Like, you don't have to be scared. At the end of the day, like, you'll be able to pay your bills, you'll be fine, and you're still doing what you love, I think. Yeah. And you get the freedom. I think it's definitely the way you think about it. You can think about it as, like, oh, I'm so scared, like, I don't have, like, a secure, like, kind of steady job, I'm freelancing, but at the same time you get to look at it like, oh, I have the freedom to work for kind of like whoever I want, you know, and like the flexibility that comes with that as well.
Yeah, and going off that, I thought it was kind of interesting how she was saying, I guess that we kind of talked about this already a little bit, but that when she did get laid off, that kind of forced her to be more creative and start with the TikTok account that she made. Which I think is also a plus to it. Like, once you're doing nothing, like, I don't know about you guys, now that we've been in lockdown or not lockdown, but quarantine for, like, a year, not so much now, but at the beginning I definitely was like so motivated because I was like, I have nothing going on. Like, I'm gonna start working out, I'm gonna start cooking, I'm gonna start reading. Like, I started doing all this stuff because I had nothing else to do. And I think that was definitely a positive thing. And to see Sarah take it and basically create like another mode of like income as well. Like, she turned that, like, that's basically a job, right? And I would definitely say in some aspects it's like it can be a full-time job too. So to see her be able to balance that plus getting her new job is very impressive to me. And I thought it was also cool hearing how she was talking about her job changing, and obviously people aren't really going into the office, but she was talking about how she is the only one that goes into the office sometimes, or the studio, I guess, with the talent, which to me sounds so stressful. Obviously, she's very skilled at her job and knows what she's doing, but so maybe I would feel like that in 4 years too. But right now, if I had to go into a studio with, like, even if they were Ryerson athletes, I'd be so scared. That's just like really intimidating. So that's good that she can do that and feels comfortable enough.
I was just gonna say, I feel like that'd be super intimidating because it's like you're in charge of everything. Like, you have to make sure like they know their cues, they know what they're saying, they know what they're doing. Like, you have to control everything that's going on in that studio. Like, that's such a big responsibility.
And even if, like, the talent has any questions, you have to know your stuff. Like, you have to know exactly what the vision is, what's going on. You need to know everything that goes into this production, because if they have questions and you can't answer it, then, like, who's going to answer them?
Then this might sound kind of bad, but I found it really inspiring how she got laid off, because for me, that's the scariest thing that could happen, you know? It's like, oh, you got a job in sport media, and then, oh, you're laid off, and then what now? And, oh my God, plus it's not the biggest, I don't think it's the easiest industry to get a job in. So I feel like that's so scary, but she took something that people, like, see as something so bad, and she turned it into something so good, and that's so amazing. Yeah, I'm just amazed by her.
Yeah, and I think one other thing she talked about, and we can kind of end on this nice positive note, but we were talking about taking skills that we've learned in lockdown and actually using them, like, in the future of our careers. Like, I gave the example of TV lab classes online, which obviously is not ideal, but I feel like that's a good skill to know. What would you guys say is something that you've learned or gotten used to over quarantine that you'll definitely be taking into the future of our, I guess, entire careers?
I can kind of kick this off. I think, honestly, TV lab, like, I was super, like, unimpressed going into that class. Like, I was like, how are we going to do this online, blah, blah, blah. But, like, after actually doing it, it made me realize that, you know, it's actually going to become, like, a staple moving forward. And, like, a lot of productions are going to end up going remote because they can now. Like, we know how to do it now. And I'm really happy that we got the chance of having, like, an in-person second-year lab to, like, learn all the basics in person, and then third-year online TV lab, because now we're, like, our year specifically is super familiar with both ends.
Yeah, it kind of feels like another class in itself, right?
And
totally new technology.
Yeah. And also just kind of, like, because I want to get into graphic design, right? So I think kind of sitting around and having nothing to do, especially in, like, the month or so that I had back in April of last year where school ended and I wasn't working yet, it really kind of helped me improve on my graphics and stuff, because I, like we've been talking about, I had nothing else to do. So I'd kind of just sit around and, like, make stuff for fun or stuff like that, like, learn new techniques, stuff like that. And, like, I've looked at progress over the past year, and, like, I think I've improved a lot. So I think, like, just knowing that and becoming more comfortable with that, I think it'll really help me in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Anyone else want to end it off? Or?
I think just general organization for me. Like, just being home, I could easily do nothing, but, like, actually trying to stay on top of myself. That's mine.
For me, it's definitely self-motivation and just learning how to deal with this. Yeah. Not on your own, but just being very independent in how you motivate yourself and get through things, you know. Hopefully we can all, like, bring those skills to the post-COVID life.
Yeah, for me the biggest thing was being able to communicate
online. Yeah, totally. And I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I definitely think it was different, and also, like we were saying, left it off on such a positive note, and it made me feel like, you know, the future of our jobs and everything it's going to be fine. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next week with another interview and discussion.
Bye.